Here's something people don't understand. And it's been a while. People say, do you still use your X100F Fuji? And yes, I do. I haven't mentioned it in quite a while. By the way, the big advantages of the X100F over the X100T, it's not a huge jump, is there are significant improvements in autofocus speed. There is a joystick, which is super magical. That's so very nice on the X100F over the X100T, which I did own the X100F. This video is not about the X100F specifically. Well, it kind of is. And there are several cameras out there. Not many, however, actually. Sony makes a couple. The best one, of course, is the Fujifilm. It's a leaf shutter. A leaf shutter. Now, what do you think you understand about high-speed sync? Well, high-speed sync is all the rage. You're able to crush the ambient lighting. Like if you're able to go outside and, just the lighting sucks. You can make crappy noonday light look like it's 8 p.m. without using ND filter. Although you could use an ND filter. By the way, there is a built-in real deal ND filter in the Fujifilm X100F, as well as the T and the S that's able to drop down and quench the ambient light, and then you're able to raise up your speed light or your studio strobe illuminant. You ever seen Bill Gekas' work? Bill Gekas, Gekas. His work is just off the hook. It's incredible. He's an official Fujifilm shooter. He does a lot of portraiture with his young daughter. He dresses her in Renaissance garb, and he just takes these absolutely magnificent photos. And he uses mostly the X100T, X100F. Now he's using the X100F. You do have improvements in autofocus speed. Joystick, like I said, joystick autofocus speed. The important thing, high-speed sync. Everybody loves high-speed sync. Well, high-speed sync is to leaf shutter or HyperSync what a beat-up Volkswagen is to a Lamborghini. Let me reiterate that so you understand. Everybody thinks, well, high-speed sync, that's where it's at. I need high-speed sync triggers and, a radio trigger, a wireless radio trigger for my camera, and a high-speed sync capable speed light. Isn't that wonderful? Well, high-speed sync on a conventional camera, which actually has two shutters in most cases, first curtain and second curtain. What you're doing is you're dropping, what people don't realize, they ask me the question all the time, you're getting a vast reduction in power. It's like, well, this is a powerful speed light. It's like, yeah, but you're using it in high-speed sync mode, where there's significant power drop-off. Why is there significant power drop-off? The reason why is high-speed sync light, like if you're working above your sync speed, which on a lot of cameras is 1/250th of a second. If you go above that, what happens is that the curtains, when the actual moving slit with the first curtain drops and the second curtain starts to follow, there is no point in time there, since the typical speed light T1 time, meaning flash duration time, about 1/10,000th, 1/13,000th of a second, depending on the speed light, it's just way too fast. The reason why there's significant power drop-off is every speed light on Earth ever made basically has a big old honking capacitor. Not only that, it's fed batteries, fed power from, and even in this case, the external power pack doesn't make a difference. It's fed power from those AA bats. The way high-speed sync works is to cover that moving slit on high-speed sync flash photography. While you think you're only seeing one single burst of light when you're doing high-speed sync, what is actually happening is the speed light is firing off like a machine gun. And the only way a speed light can fire off like a machine gun is it's able to charge the capacitor. You ever heard a capacitor blow in a speed light? Boom! I've heard it quite a few times. When they get old or abused, especially in the camera store, someone will be charging with a speed light and you hear this, BAM! That's what happens. Is that it's able to charge and drop the charge from the capacitor really fast. So it charges, drops, charges, it's pulsing the light. That's the only way it's actually able to cover the first curtain and the second curtain that's following it as the sensor is being exposed. This is high-speed sync. And this means that the speed light, doesn't matter who makes the speed light, they all have this issue. And it's a significant issue, is that no matter how powerful your stinking speed, most of them are about the same power. No matter how powerful your speed light is huffing and puffing and panting like a dog in heat, trying to charge and drop really, really fast, faster than you can actually see. Because when you do a high-speed sync shot, you just see boom. But what's happening is And this is why there's significant power drop. You cannot drop a full charge to that speed light. So this is why, I think I made this analogy really, really simple. It's not an analogy. It's actually exactly what happens. The magic, and nobody understands, like, why would I want to buy this? Got a fixed lens on it. It's only a 23 millimeter, 35 millimeter equivalent. Why would I want to use this camera? Because the leaf shutter is magical. You know, I don't know much about cars, but you know, you like look at a crappy car, and it's like, oh, that thing can't move, and then you don't realize that there's like twin nitrous oxide tanks underneath the hood, and then when Grandpa's driving his old jalopy, he wouldn't be Grandpa, it'd be like some young punk. He's like, that thing can't haul butt, and you know, it's up to 60 miles an hour, pretty fast because it's got a decent engine in it. Someone flicks the nitrous switch, and wham, it floors, it peels rubber. This is analogous to what a leaf shutter is. Leaf shutter, i.e. HyperSync, is so infinitely better than high speed. People they don't understand. They think, well, high speed sync, you know, it means I could do flash photography 1/4000th of a second. I go, you don't understand. You can't drop much power in high speed sync because it doesn't matter what unit it is. High speed sync is pulsed light. It means the capacitors are huffing and puffing to drop as much light as they can, as quick as they can. And the result is that that much light is about 1/4, about, depending on the speed light, averages about 25–30% of what the actual full capabilities of the speed light are. If you take your speed light and you cut its power down by, you know, chop off 70% of your speed light's power, then you realize that high-speed sync is not able to drop much light on your subject. It's typically enough for, you know, a person shoot at 8 feet or so to illuminate them and to quench out the sun. It's like, well, I want to shoot at f2.8. Okay, you want to shallow it up the field, and I want to shoot high-speed sync. Let's say 1/2000th of a second. It's like, well, isn't that special? High-speed sync photography is just not that potent. It is very lovely. It's wonderful. Everybody, well, most everybody knows why, if they've done high-speed sync photography, why it's great. But compared to a leaf shutter, it's just like comparing a Volkswagen, a crappy old Volkswagen, to a Lamborghini. There's just no comparison. HyperSync is dropping a single fat pulse of light. And by the way, the other really important thing, I think I've mentioned this already, is that HyperSync, i.e. leaf shutter use, means you could use any speed light ever made by anybody, old, new, off-brand, on-brand, doesn't matter what the hell it is. It does not need TTL connection, it doesn't need any of that crap. You could use a dumb trigger where it just gives a fire command to the speed light, and you're able to do 1/4000th of a second, in this case on the X-100F, or 1/2000th of a second, leaf shutter flash photography, able to do HyperSync flash photography. So much better than high-speed sync photography. This is the reason why the people that actually, well, it's like, why would you have that little camera? It's got a fixed lens on it. You know, relative to the XT2, it's not all that fast. This is basically meant to be a digital rangefinder. This is a digital rangefinder, you know, relative to a light. I'd rather have this than a damn Leica, quite honestly. Unless it was like a monochrome Leica. Someone's always texting me when I'm making a video. So this is the difference between high-speed sync photography and a leaf shutter, or in this case also talking about HyperSync photography. Really expensive Broncolor units, by the way, do HyperSync photography, and the way they work is that regular, not using normal capacitors, the way they're actually able to drop a charge, it is a super fat burst of light. Typical speed light, T1 time, meaning the duration from when the flash starts to 90% fall off, which is basically the entire duration, is really, really small, like 1/13,000th of a second. Typically 1/8000, 1/13, depending on the power output. It varies on power output. The higher the power it is, the fatter it is, and the more longer. It's still really, really short. Like the really, really expensive Broncolor units, they're able to drop 1/200th of a second of really fat, high-power light. This is the reason why Broncolor units cost a lot of money. What this means is you're not dealing with the issues of high-speed sync photography where you got limited power burst lighting. So a Broncolor unit, for example, is able to drop a really fat 1/200th of a second. Since Most cameras have their sync speed at 1/200th of a second, 1/250th of a second, or 1/200th of a second. This means that anything faster than that on shutter speed, that 1/200th of a second fat burst of light, will cover whatever shutter speed it is you choose to pick. This is why HyperSync photography is the professional version of high-speed sync photography. It is absolutely the case, and I will not mince words, that high-speed sync photography, while tons of professionals use it, high-speed sync is basically amateur lighting photography. While it's completely effective, it is still amateur lighting photography relative to HyperSync. You see, there's regular flash photography here, and there's high-speed sync photography here. Way up here is HyperSync. This is the expensive, that and leaf shutters, actually. Talk about HyperSync and leaf shutters. This is the pinnacle of the mountain of actual, and this is where stuff gets hot and heavy. When you talk about professional photography, people are not talking about damn cameras and lenses. They're talking about lighting. They're getting hot and heavy and get excited about lighting. I've talked about this endlessly. People, if you care about photography, you're not sitting there, and I'm guilty of it as anybody, talk about damn cameras and lenses all the time. It's about lighting. And this is why HyperSync photography is so highly desirable. It makes things so much easier. You're able to drop some hardcore light, and you're actually able to back away from your damn subject. When you got high-speed sync photography, it is like you were chained, like ball and chain. Well, I can't really back up more than 12 feet away from my subject, depending on what unit it is you're using. There's just not enough power. Or you really want to override the sun. It's like, I'm going to drop some hardcore power. I'm going to turn this crappy noonday light and to make it look like it's 8 p.m. I'm going to shoot at f2.8, 1/8,000th of a second. And then you're able to drop some serious power with HyperSync. But HyperSync is... By the way, that's the future of lighting. To get HyperSync, and I know what another company is doing, by the way, to compete with Broncolor. That's the future of where the people that know about lighting, where it's actually going, is that the people that know want cheap, or relatively cheap, HyperSync flash photography. So I hope I cleared that up, and basically, really talked down and gave the smack down to high-speed sync photography. Everybody thinks high-speed sync is so great. You know, it's great, but compared to leaf shutter and HyperSync, high-speed sync is just like child's play crap. Excuse my language, but that's the case. If you like these videos, click the link below. Tell me to jump off a cliff, whatever makes you happy. Because I kick my butt every day answering questions and comments and emails and phone calls and... I'm going to end this video by going, Fuji! Thanks, bye.